Here are my note cards. Howdy everyone. I would like to thank Zachary for talking before me about the pedestrian problem. It's a problem near and dear to my heart because I remember as the first day I was going on A&M, I was walking to Heldenfels for a calculus class, and as I was walking across the street, a VO bike almost ran across the intersection and hit me. I remember then I went and sat down in Heldenfels, and I was kind of this bright-eyed freshman. I was looking forward to my first class, and I sat down. I was real uncomfortable in the chair. I tried to look at the projector, but the professor couldn't quite get it to work, so we sat in 5 to 10 minutes of the class murmuring, and then professor couldn't quite tell us because we were too loud. Overall, I didn't learn anything that day, and I thought this was a one-off occasion, but I realized it's the status quo for a lot of the classrooms on A&M's campus. That's why I believe the administration at A&M needs to reinvest in the classrooms and the buildings at A&M to help their students learn more effectively. Today, we're going to talk about how our classrooms are failing us, how to use the money more effectively to help rebuild these classrooms, and what a renovated A&M looks like. So first, we need to understand and diagnose the problem. Right now, our classrooms face two main problems. The first is that they're really old and out of date, and the second is the overpopulation issue that A&M has just because we have such a large student population. I found an article that was written by Sarah and Sapa in 2014 that said that college students typically spend at least another 400 classroom hours in post-secondary education buildings. Now, this is a lot of time. And what I find interesting is this a lot of time is not much different from the time that we spent in the classrooms from K to 12. If you look, this is a classroom for what seems to be second or third graders, and this is a college-level classroom. And in essence and symbolically, they're the same thing. There's rows of people looking at a professor at the front of the room that's talking, and they're taking notes. There's not much to change, even though that the coursework and the ideas have become much more complicated. Furthermore, I found an article by the Tech Advocate that was written by Lynch in 2021 that said that overcrowding in America's classrooms were one of the 20 main problems that's why America's education system is failing. I think A&M gets the worst of both worlds because both of these issues are a problem at A&M. Our classrooms are out of date. They haven't updated to what our current education stands for and what we need out of it. But also, we have a ton of students going to A&M, and if you think back to your freshman classes, you can probably see this as an issue. As I remember, every time I try to talk to a professor after class, I end up waiting in a line for 30 minutes or not even talking to him and just sending him an email later. Obviously, this is an issue, and I think it's one that we can all relate with. So how do we fix it? How do we make these classrooms better? And I think the first thing we need to do is reinvest in our academic buildings. I think Howard did a really good example of this, Howard University. I found a Washington Post article written by Lumpkin in 2022 that said they invested $785 million into renovating their buildings. 670 of this went for buildings that were over 4 decades old. If you look here, this is a picture of Howard University, and this is, of course, a picture of Texas A&M University. And what I find kind of funny is that both of these universities look so similar because they were built in the late 1800s, which means they face a lot of the same issues. That's why I think we should take a page out of Howard's playbook and actually reinvest in our old academic buildings ourselves. I think the main struggle where a lot of these poor classrooms are in those old academic buildings. And I think the second thing we need to be doing with our money to better help our classrooms and students learn is that we need to be giving professors equipment that they can actually use and equipment that lasts. Right now, I know that a lot of professors aren't really trained on the equipment they have, but furthermore, a lot of times it's just broken. So they get to class, they know how to use it and everything, but it's not ready to work, which is a huge issue and why I think so many classes go so long without learning anything. But why should we be doing this, right? It's great to know how to do it, but why should we be doing it? I think first and foremost, A&M has an obligation to make sure that the campus of A&M lives up to the standard that we have for it. I want us all to imagine classrooms at work. I think what I mean by this, and I think a good example of this, is the Zachary Engineering Complex. If you look here, this is the Zachary Engineering Complex, and this is kind of a classroom built like it. And these are the classrooms that you'd find in Heldenfeld, and the one that we want to fix. And I think the main difference is that a lot of these new classrooms are more modular. They're focused on the students talking to each other. While the professor's still kind of at the front teaching, each student has a TV at their station, that they can look at the professor's lecture on. And then also, if they have a question, instead of waiting afterwards for the professor, they can very politely discuss it with their classmate across from them and better learn on the spot and not have to wait so much time and actually still continue to focus on the lecture. I think if we all look around campus, we can see that this is a major issue and that this is something that should be worked on. A&M should be reinvesting money into their academic buildings. Right now, they're falling apart. Also, we know how to do it, and even we know what they should be looking like. What I'd like to leave us all with is that at the end of the day, A&M is our campus. College Station is ours. And I think we best know where these resources should be dedicated to. This is why I believe that we should all be sending emails to our administrators, or at least starting the conversations about which classrooms need the most help. Thank you guys for listening. I'm now going to hand it over to Mariposa, who will be talking about why A&M needs to develop an app to better help students navigate around the campus. Thank you guys.